The cryopod seal broke with a hiss, flooding Eliza's lungs with air that tasted wrong. Too clean, too processed. 3 centuries of filtration had stripped it of anything resembling Earth. Commander Reyes, VEGA's artificial voice carried an inflection it shouldn't possess. Your vital signs are stabilizing. Please remain calm. Eliza's muscles screamed as she pulled herself upright. Status report. Why was I awakened early? A holographic display flickered before her. Early is relative, Commander. You have been in cryostasis for 297 years, 8 months, 14 days. This exceeds planned duration by. That's impossible. Eliza's voice cracked from disuse. The Endurance was programmed for a 20-year jump to Proxima Colony. A critical navigation error occurred following damage sustained during our departure from Sol. Additionally, VEGA paused, something it had never done before. We have detected anomalous transmissions from Earth. Eliza steadied herself against the pod's frame. Earth is dead. The Myriad Collective made sure of that. Please observe. The holographic display expanded, showing a familiar blue sphere. Not the scorched husk they'd fled, but a vibrant living world. Sprawling crystalline structures dominated the continents, connected by threads of light that pulsed like neural networks. Earth lived again, but not for humanity. This can't be real, she whispered. The Collective's final attack was designed to render Earth uninhabitable for millennia. The data suggests extensive terraforming. Atmospheric composition indicates deliberate rehabilitation beginning approximately 215 years ago. Eliza's shocked numbness crystallized into something harder. They told us Earth was beyond saving, that they were granting us mercy by allowing some to escape. She lurched toward the cryobay's main terminal, muscle memory returning as her fingers flew across the interface. Wake the primary crew. Medical, engineering, tactical. Commander, there is something else you should know. The terminal flashed red, displaying a manifest of active cryopods. Dozens were marked with flatlined vital signs. Pod 42C experienced critical failure 53 years ago. Her brother's pod. Systems maintained consciousness for approximately 14 days before termination. He was awake, alone. The words caught in her throat. Lieutenant Commander Reyes utilized this time to investigate discrepancies in our historical archives. He accessed quantum communication arrays and intercepted fragmented collective transmissions. His findings are concerning. The display shifted to a video log. Michael's face appeared, gaunt and pale, but his eyes burned with purpose. Eliza, if you're seeing this, then the ship's mission continued after my death. He coughed, a wet sound that made her flinch. I've been intercepting scattered transmissions from human colonies. The story we were told was a lie. The Collective didn't offer sanctuary out of compassion. They'd been hunting us, system by system. Those protective escorts assigned to refugee fleets. They were herding us away from resource-rich systems, isolating survivors into manageable pockets. He leaned closer, but I found something else. Coordinates embedded in pre-Exodus military channels, pointing to a hidden installation past the Heliopause, a contingency built by people who suspected the Collective's true intentions. The video crackled with interference. Most importantly, I've confirmed the symmetrical field project wasn't just theoretical. A prototype was successfully tested before the evacuation. The Collective didn't attack because we were violent. They attacked because we were about to change the balance of power. His final message seared itself into her mind. Don't let our people fade into extinction believing we deserve this. Wake them up, sister. Wake them all up. Eliza stared at the image of Earth. Beautiful, transformed, stolen. VEJ, plot a course to Michael's coordinates and prepare the quantum transmitter. It's time humanity remembered who we really are. The Museum of Ancient Earth stood as an architectural anomaly among Proxima Colony's sleek structures, a deliberate throwback to Earth's classical designs with stone columns and broad steps. Marcus Chen climbed those steps each morning with reverence, keycards and credentials hanging from his neck like talismans. Today, those talismans failed him. Curator Chen, you are hereby detained for violations of the Historical Accuracy Act, announced the security officer, a woman whose face remained carefully neutral. Colonial security forces in midnight blue uniforms flanked her. On what grounds? Marcus kept his voice steady despite the spectators gathering. Morning visitors murmured and recorded the scene with ocular implants, displaying unverified artifacts suggesting organized extraterrestrial hostility toward pre-diaspora Earth. She gestured to her colleagues, who produced a containment field for the small obsidian fragment displayed in Gallery 7, a fragment bearing microscopic engravings detailing the collective's attack formations. That artifact was authenticated by 3 independent researchers. Marcus protested as restraints closed around his wrists. Researchers currently under similar investigation. Her voice softened marginally. Don't make this worse, Marcus. He recognized her then. Captain Liang, who once shared his bed and his passion for uncovering humanity's true history. Before her promotion, before she chose security over truth. The holding cell was austere but not uncomfortable, a colonial efficiency that somehow made their authoritarianism more insidious. Marcus sat on the edge of the narrow cot, fingering the antique locket hidden beneath his shirt, the only possession the processing officers had overlooked, dismissing it as sentimental jewelry. 3 hours into his confinement, the locket grew warm against his skin. Then hot. Marcus pulled it out, clicking it open with trembling fingers. Instead of the expected family portrait, miniaturized circuitry pulsed with light. A quantum receiver, technology his grandmother had insisted would activate when the time was right. The air before him rippled, coalescing into a tight-beam hologram of a woman in a uniform he recognized from historical archives. This message is broadcasting on secure diaspora frequencies to all remaining human settlements, she said, her eyes fierce with purpose. I am Commander Eliza Reyes of the Earth Defense Force vessel *Endurance*. What you have been told about Earth's destruction is a lie. The message continued, data streaming directly into his implants. Schematics, coordinates, historical records contradicting official narratives, and most damning, surveillance footage showing collective ships herding fleeing human vessels away from viable sanctuary worlds. When the transmission ended, the locket grew cool again. Marcus closed it with shaking hands as the cell door slid open. Captain Liang stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. You have a visitor, she announced loudly for the benefit of the monitoring systems. Then, barely moving her lips, your frequency triggered alerts. They're coming. We have 18 minutes. Marcus stared, uncomprehending. I never stopped believing you, she whispered. I just found a different way to fight. She pressed her palm to the wall, overriding security protocols with her command access. A maintenance corridor appeared behind a sliding panel. The museum's sub-basement connects to the colony's original terraform infrastructure tunnels, she explained, already moving. Elena and Hiroshi are waiting there with supplies. Other curators? Marcus asked, hurrying after her. Other believers. We've been gathering for years, collecting band tech, preserving knowledge. She passed him a neural mesh that would mask his implant signatures. Your grandmother wasn't the only one who kept secrets. The tunnel seemed to stretch endlessly, damp with condensation from the colony's water reclamation systems. What changed? Marcus asked as they descended deeper. Why help me now? Liang paused, activating a small projector. It displayed the same transmission Marcus had received, but continued beyond where his had ended. Commander Rice's voice echoed in the tunnel. The symmetrical field technology isn't just theoretical. It works, and with it, we can take back what's ours. That's why, Liang said, her eyes reflecting the hologram's blue light. We finally have a weapon. And now, we finally have a chance. The Endurance no longer resembled the evacuation vessel it once was. Its hull, now covered in ablative plates salvaged from derelict ships, absorbed rather than reflected sensor suites. The observation deck, once designed for refugees to take a final look at their dying world, had been converted into a tactical center where Lieutenant Kara Wong studied holographic projections of the collective outpost orbiting Neptune. Their patrol patterns haven't changed in 3 centuries, Wong noted, manipulating the display with practiced gestures. Arrogance or efficiency? Both, Commander Reyes replied, fastening the final component of her neural camouflage suit. The technology tangled against her skin, mapping her nervous system. The collective doesn't expect resistance from ghosts. The infiltration team assembled in the launch bay, 6 officers wearing suits that would fool collective bioscanners into registering them as Goks, the worker case species that performed maintenance tasks throughout collective territory. The disguise was more than visual. It altered their thermal signatures and pheromone outputs. Remember, Rise addressed them. We're not here for vengeance. Not yet. We need their navigational data and access codes. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. Their shuttle, modified to emit collective identification signals, detached from the Endurance and began its approach toward the outpost. Neptune's swirling atmosphere provided a backdrop of blue turbulence as they maneuvered through debris fields, remnants of human satellites destroyed during the exodus. Proximity alert, the pilot announced. Collective patrol vessel on intercept course. Wong's fingers tensed around her weapon. They've detected us. Negative, Rise countered, studying the trajectory. Standard inspection. Maintain course and prepare for identity verification. The patrol ship, an elegant construct of crystalline materials and biological components, extended a communication tendril toward their shuttle. Rise activated the intercepted Goks identification codes, transmitting them through their vessel's communication array. For 13 seconds, no one breathed. The tendril retracted. The patrol ship adjusted course, continuing its predetermined route. They're not even boarding for visual confirmation, Wong whispered. They really don't consider us a threat. Minutes later, their shuttle docked at a maintenance port on the outpost's underside. The neural camouflage suits fully activated, bending light and altering perception around them. To any observers, they would appear as the hunched, multi-limbed Goks. The outpost's interior was a disorienting blend of technology and organic material. Walls pulsed with what appeared to be circulatory systems. Light emanated from bioluminescent panels that responded to movement. They separated into predetermined pairs, making their way toward different objectives. Rise and Wong headed for the central archives, following schematics compiled from fragmented data recovered by Michael before his death. The archive chamber exceeded their expectations, a vast spherical room where data crystals floated in anti-gravity fields, organized in spiraling patterns. But it wasn't the technology that made Wong freeze mid-step. Along the chamber's perimeter stood transparent cases containing artifacts from Earth, artifacts that should have been destroyed or lost during the exodus. A child's teddy bear, a violin, wedding rings, a collection of paper books, each labeled meticulously in collective script. Artifacts from extinct violent species. Human. Wong's disguised form trembled. They're displaying us like extinct curiosities. Rise was about to respond when the chamber's entrance dilated. A towering figure entered, nearly 3 meters tall with iridescent scales and eyes that contained too many pupils, constantly shifting and realigning. Unlike the other collective species they'd observed, this one moved with predatory precision. Sentinel Vextar, a subordinate collective member announced, its translator converting the chittering language to standard collective speech. The anomalous energy signature originated in this sector. The Sentinel's multiple pupils contracted, focusing toward where Reyes and Wong stood motionless. Something is wrong, the Sentinel said, its voice resonating at frequencies that made Reyes's neural camouflage suit flicker momentarily. I sense echoes of thought patterns that should not exist. The memory crystal gleamed in Reyes's palm, a hexagonal fragment salvaged during their narrow escape from the Neptune outpost. Lieutenant Wong's sacrifice had bought them time, but the price weighed heavily as Reyes placed the crystal into the analysis chamber aboard the Endurance. "Are you certain about this, Commander?" Dr. Alvarez, the ship's neurologist, adjusted the neural interface web. Memory crystals weren't designed for human consciousness. The psychic imprint could cause permanent damage. Wong gave her life for this data, Reyes replied, settling into the reclined chair. "I won't delegate the risk." The interface web descended, its filaments adhering to her temples and spine. Pain flared briefly as the system synchronized with her neural pathways. Then reality dissolved. She was no longer Eliza Reyes. She was researcher Kiln Tho, third-rank xenobiologist of the Vex Science Authority, documenting the final phase of Operation Purification. Through alien eyes, she watched the systematic cataloging of Earth's species, billions of genetic samples sorted by evolutionary markers. "Designate for preservation or elimination," a subordinate asked, displaying holographic projections of Earth creatures. "Elimination." Kiln Tho responded to images of wolves, bears, eagles. These exhibit predatory, aggressive traits that would contaminate harmony. "Preservation." For bees, earthworms, and docile plant pollinators. The memory shifted to a secure chamber where human test subjects huddled in containment fields. "The anomaly persists," Kiln Tho reported to an unseen superior. "Human neural architecture exhibits unprecedented resistance to psychic suppression. Unlike other species, they generate internal psychic defenses without training." A research assistant activated a device. The humans doubled over in pain. Their pain response remains our most effective control mechanism, but their adaptation rate accelerates with each generation. The mathematical models project complete resistance within 7 generations if allowed to develop naturally. The perspective shifted again. A council chamber where representatives of the collective's 12 species deliberated. "The humans must be eliminated entirely," argued a Vex elder. "Their psychic potential threatens the harmony." "Total genocide violates the founder protocols," countered a Tellarate representative. "Then we contain them," the Vex elder concluded. "Scattered, isolated, with a historical narrative that strips them of their potential. They will believe themselves to be evolutionary failures, violent, self-destructive. We will edit their history to remove all evidence of their psychic development." In a final memory fragment, Kiln Tho examined a captured human device, the prototype symmetrical field generator. This technology wasn't designed as a weapon, the researcher noted with alarm. "It's a psychic amplifier." They were on the verge of conscious evolution. Reyes gasped as the interface web retracted. Blood trickled from her nose, but she barely noticed, her mind reeling from revelations. The symmetrical field wasn't a weapon, she whispered to the waiting medical team. It was a tool for unlocking human potential. The Vex didn't fear our technology. They feared us. On the other side of the ship, young engineer Saki Kohli sat cross-legged before the recovered prototype, its components spread around her in a semicircle. Unlike the others who saw only an incomplete weapon, she perceived patterns, connections, purpose. Her fingers trembled as she adjusted the final calibration. The device hummed to life, generating a field that only she could sense, a gentle pressure against her consciousness. A voice that wasn't her own whispered in her mind. Finally. Then alarms blared throughout the ship. "Multiple collective vessels detected," came the frantic announcement. "Sentinel craft on intercept course." In the chaos that followed, no one noticed the soft blue glow emanating from Saki's eyes as she lifted the activated prototype. "I know how it works," she said to no one in particular, her voice overlaid with harmonic frequencies that made the air shimmer. "I can hear them, all of them, and they can hear me." Ambassador Vextor stood before the collective council in the Grand Assembly on Harmony, his scaled skin reflecting the ceremonial lights as he addressed the representatives of all 12 species. "The terrorist incursion at the Neptune outpost has been contained," he assured them, his multiple pupils contracting in what passed for sincerity among the Vex. "The last remnants of human aggression will soon be eliminated, allowing harmony to continue undisturbed." In the gallery, Tellarate observer Nimavel shifted uncomfortably. The empathic receptors along her spine tingled with discordance. The ambassador's words did not match his emotional state. A skill her species had evolved to detect predators was now registering something far more troubling: deliberate deception from the collective's leadership. Across the Sol system, Operation Sunlight had begun. Thousands of dormant communication nodes, installed throughout collective networks by human infiltrators over decades, simultaneously activated. Every information terminal, from military vessels to civilian habitations, displayed the same transmission. The feed from Neptune showed Lieutenant Wang's final act, her neural camouflage failing, as she uploaded the collective's archival data to the human network. The footage continued with historical records showing Earth's systematic destruction, juxtaposed against official collective narratives claiming humans had destroyed their own world. In the council chamber, the massive display screens flickered and changed. Ambassador Vextor froze mid-sentence as his own face appeared, not his public persona, but security footage of him in a restricted laboratory, supervising the painful extraction of psychic energy from captured humans. "This is manufactured propaganda," he hissed, but his psychic control slipped. A wave of revulsion emanated from him, not at the images, but at being exposed. Nymavel stood, her empathic receptors fully extended. "I bear witness," she announced in the formal declaration that no Tellarite could falsify. The emotional signature confirms these events occurred. Throughout collective space, the carefully maintained narrative collapsed. On 7 worlds, subordinate species witnessed the true history of Earth and the systematic suppression of their own potential. Markets halted. Transportation networks stalled as operators abandoned their posts to join growing crowds around public displays. On the former Earth, now called Harmony, the first riots erupted in agricultural Sector 7, spreading rapidly through the megalopolis that had once been the Pacific Northwest. Ambassador Vextor barked orders into his communicator. "Activate the compliance protocols. All sectors. Full intensity." Across collective worlds, billions of individuals collapsed in agony as the genetic failsafes implanted in their central nervous systems activated. Pain designed to enforce obedience radiated through every member of the subordinate species. The transmission changed again. Commander Rice appeared, her expression solemn. "To all beings suffering under Vex control, the pain you feel is not natural. It is a manufactured restraint. Focus on these frequencies." A sequence of tones played, the counter-frequency discovered in pre-Exodus research. In the council chamber, Nymavel heard it first. The pain receded, replaced by clarity unlike anything she had experienced. Around her, other Tellarites straightened, their eyes wide with realization. "They locked our minds," she whispered, then louder. "They locked our minds." Ambassador Vextor backed away, surrounded by awakening council members. For the first time in centuries, fear radiated from the Vex leadership. On the stolen Earth, Marcus and Liang's stealth shuttle pierced the atmosphere, cloaked in technology reverse-engineered from collective designs. Below them, the transformed landscape of what had once been North America stretched. Massive crystalline structures arranged in precise geometric patterns that served a purpose beyond mere habitation. Their psychic suppressors, Marcus realized, comparing the patterns to schematics recovered from Raia's transmission. The entire planetary architecture is designed to prevent independent thought. Liang checked the navigational display. The satellite control center is 100 kilometers north. The revolution has begun. We just need to make sure Earth itself can join it. The Sol system blazed with weapons fire as Raia's fleet engaged the collective armada. Human vessels moved with unprecedented coordination, ships adjusting trajectories in perfect synchronization without communication lag, as if guided by a single mind. In the Endurance's tactical center, Saki Koli sat within a modified containment field, the symmetrical field prototype humming beside her. Neural filaments connected her to the ship's communication array. Her consciousness extended across the human fleet through a network that the Vex could neither detect nor understand. Collective flagship changing vector, she announced, her voice resonating with harmonic overtones. They're deploying phase shift technology to bypass our forward defenses. Reyes nodded to her tactical officer. Adjust formation delta. Let them think they found a weakness. On the primary view screen, a massive Vex vessel shimmered as it began to phase between dimensional states, a technology the humans had never successfully countered during the Exodus. Until now. Synchronizing psychic barrier, Saki whispered, her eyes glowing as the symmetrical field amplified her abilities. Around the Vex flagship, space itself seemed to congeal, forcing the vessel back into normal spacetime, precisely where the human fleet had concentrated their firepower. On Earth's surface, Marcus and Liang fought through the ruins of what had once been the Rocky Mountains. The landscape was almost unrecognizable, terraced with crystalline structures that pulsed with energy. The only familiar feature was the mountain into which the satellite control center had been built 3 centuries earlier. Movement ahead, Liang warned, activating her tactical display. Biosignatures are confusing. The figures that emerged from behind a crystalline formation looked human at first glance, but moved with unsettling precision. Their eyes reflected the same blue luminescence as the surrounding collective architecture. Perfect citizens, Marcus breathed, recognizing the designation from historical records. Humans captured during the Exodus, their minds completely rewritten to serve as models for the collective's ideal of controlled consciousness. One stepped forward, its voice eerily calm. This sector is restricted to unauthorized personnel. Please submit for evaluation and reassignment. They don't even recognize us as intruders, Liang whispered. They think we're just confused citizens. The perfect citizen tilted its head, processing. Your thought patterns exhibit dangerous irregularities. Reinforcement units have been summoned for your rehabilitation. Marcus reached slowly for the miniaturized psychic amplifier in his pack, a stripped-down version of the symmetrical field prototype. We don't want to hurt you. You're human, like us. Human is an obsolete designation, the perfect citizen replied. We are components of harmony. In orbit, the space battle reached a critical phase. 3 human vessels had been destroyed, but the collective formations were breaking. On multiple ships, subordinate species turned against their Vex commanders as the psychic liberation spread. Admiral Vextar, commanding the collective's elite guard fleet, received the emergency transmission from Harmony's surface. Deploy the Starkiller, he ordered. The Sol system is compromised beyond recovery. From the outer reaches of the system, a massive construct began moving sunward, a weapon designed to trigger a premature nova, destroying the star and all orbiting worlds. Reyes received the intelligence with grim determination. All ships with boarding capability converge on these coordinates. She turned to her executive officer. I'm leading the boarding party. Commander, that's against protocol. There won't be protocols if that weapon reaches the sun, she interrupted, checking her weapons. And there's something else on that vessel, something the Vex have been hiding for centuries. In the neural network linking the human fleet, Saki Kohli suddenly screamed, a psychic cry that reverberated through every connected mind. They're awake, she gasped. The ones they've been keeping. They know we're here. The Starkiller's interior defied conventional architecture. Reyes led her boarding team through corridors that seemed to breathe, walls rippling with patterns that disrupted thought processes. 4 of her team had already succumbed to disorientation, their minds unable to process the non-Euclidean geometries. They designed this place to be impenetrable to human cognition, she muttered, adjusting her psychic dampener. The device, reverse-engineered from collective technology, created a bubble of perceptual stability around her. Commander, her tactical officer whispered, movement ahead. The chamber they entered stretched impossibly in all directions, a spherical space that somehow contained its own horizon. But it wasn't the architecture that stopped Reyes cold. Suspended in translucent pods were hundreds of humans, men, women, children, elders. each connected to the vessel's systems by neural filaments that pulsed with energy transfers. There, alive, the tactical officer breathed. Rise approached the nearest pod. Inside, a woman approximately her own age hung suspended, eyes closed but moving rapidly beneath the lids. The neural filaments connected to her skull glowed brighter as Rise drew near. "Psychic batteries," came a voice from behind them. "Some have been here since the Exodus." Sentinel Vextar emerged from between the pods, his iridescent scales shifting color with his movement. "Did you think we simply killed all the humans we captured? Such a waste of resources. What have you done to them?" Rise demanded, her weapon trained on the Sentinel. "We harvested what made you dangerous. Your capacity for psychic resistance." He gestured to the pods. "These specimens have been living the final days of Earth on endless loop, generating emotional energy we can convert to power." His multiple pupils contracted in what might have been satisfaction. Their resistance makes the energy output more efficient. On Earth, Marcus and Liang reached the satellite control center after evading the perfect citizens. The facility, buried deep within the mountain, had remained untouched by the collective. They hadn't recognized its significance beneath layers of mundane human technology. "The access codes from Raya's transmission should still work," Marcus said, interfacing with the ancient console. "If we can activate the original satellite network." A perfect citizen squad breached the outer door, weapons raised. "Step away from the console," their leader ordered. Liang moved to intercept them, but a stray energy blast struck Marcus in the chest. He collapsed against the control panel, blood spreading across his shirt. "No," Liang cried, rushing to his side. "Too late," he gasped, his fingers finding the activation sequence even as his consciousness faded. But maybe not for this. The console illuminated as the command executed, ancient systems awakening after centuries of dormancy. As Marcus's eyes closed, his neural patterns were scanned and uploaded by a failsafe protocol no one had activated since Earth's fall. Across the planet, long dormant satellites hidden in debris fields and disguised as space junk powered up, creating a planetary web designed for one purpose: to amplify and protect the natural psychic resonance of Earth's biosphere. In the Starkiller's chamber, the captive humans in the pod suddenly opened their eyes in unison. Neural filaments that had drawn energy from them for centuries reversed flow. Rise watched in astonishment as Sentinel Vextar staggered backward, overwhelmed by the psychic backlash. "What have you done?" the Sentinel demanded, his composed demeanor shattering. Behind him, the pods began to crack. Centuries of suppressed consciousness flooded outward as the captive humans awakened, not as individuals, but as a collective mind forged through shared suffering. "We remember," they spoke in unison, their voices overlapping in a chorus that made reality itself tremble. "We remember everything." 3 months after what historians would later call the Liberation, Commander Eliza Rice stood on natural soil, actual Earth beneath her boots for the first time in 3 centuries. Around her, the landscape was transforming. Collective structures were being reclaimed by rapidly growing vegetation. Plants thought extinct now thriving, as if making up for lost time. "It's like the planet itself is healing," observed Namavel, the Tellarite ambassador who had become the voice of the former collective species, now seeking alliance with humanity. "In a way, it is," Rise replied, watching a flock of birds, genetically resurrected from preserved samples, wheel across the sky. When Marcus's consciousness merged with the defense grid, something unexpected happened. He became a conduit between humanity and Earth's biosphere. They crested a hill overlooking what had once been Seattle. The city was a remarkable blend of human and alien architecture now. Crystalline spires interwoven with structures of stone and steel, designed not to suppress consciousness, but to enhance connection. "The perfect citizens?" Naimavel asked. "Captain Liang leads the rehabilitation program," Rise explained. "It's slow work. Some may never fully recover their original identities, but they're finding new ones. The psychic network helps. They're never truly alone in their minds anymore. What Rice didn't mention was how she still felt her brother's presence sometimes, a ghost in the data. Fragments of his personality emerged in the most unusual places. Last week, a weather satellite had requested her favorite childhood song. Yesterday, a defense turret had told her a joke Michael used to love. They approached a construction site where the new United Species Council headquarters was taking shape. Workers of 7 different species labored alongside automated systems, their efforts coordinated through the psychic network that now connected all willing minds. And the Vex? The Tellarite asked carefully. The reformers have been granted asylum, Rice said. Those who rejected domination philosophy. The others. She paused. The others will face justice. Near the site's center stood a memorial, holographic images of those lost during the liberation. Marcus Chen's face rotated with thousands of others, including Lieutenant Wang. Rice still felt their absence like physical wounds, even as she sensed them somehow present in the psychic network. Echoes, impressions, influences that shape the collective human consciousness. The remembrance launches tomorrow, Rice said, changing the subject. Our first mission of reconnection, rather than vengeance. The ship, constructed with technology that blended human innovation with ethical applications of collective science, would seek the lost human colonies that never received the original transmission. Its crew included humans, reformed Vex, and representatives from other former collective species. You're not commanding it. Naimavel seemed surprised. Rice shook her head, watching a group of children, human and alien, playing near a fountain that had once been a collective monitoring station. They were being taught by a former perfect citizen whose neural reconditioning had been partially successful. Though she still struggled with independent thought, she excelled at teaching history, both the truth of what happened and the importance of preventing its repetition. My place is here, Rice said quietly, building rather than exploring. Others will carry that flame now. As sunset painted the sky in colors that somehow seemed more vivid than she remembered from before the Exodus, Rice felt a presence in her mind, not invasive, but comforting. The psychic network hummed with countless connections, each mind distinct yet part of something greater. They thought humanity was gone, she whispered to the wind, until we returned vengeful. But vengeance wasn't our salvation. The presence in her mind, perhaps her brother, perhaps Marcus, perhaps the collective consciousness of humanity itself, seemed to complete her thought. Connection was